Here we are at 6 o'clock on this Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 is what we're still saying here. I'm getting it right in the checkbook. I haven't written a checkbook in forever. In fact, I think my checkbook still says like 2007 on like the first check in the book I'm currently writing. But welcome to Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Greg Bach is back as well. We'll talk to him from Waukesha. We'll talk to Dr. Jill Underly, State Superintendent of Public Instruction. We'll also talk to Deborah Cronmiller from the League of Women Voters. Talk all about some new rules on absentee ballot access in Wisconsin, catch up with the headlines, sports, a forecast from Brittany Merlot, and more. We'll get this whole shindig started at 6:06 right after news and commercials across the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you soon.
Fox is in Austin.
A three-judge panel of the Fifth Circuit Court unanimously ruling that the U.S. government cannot enforce federal guidance in Texas requiring emergency room doctors to perform abortions if necessary to stabilize patients. Texas filed suit arguing the guidance was a nationwide mandate, the Fifth Circuit agreeing, ruling that the federal law does not mandate medical treatments, let alone abortion care, nor does it preempt Texas law. Chris Fox for CBS News, Austin.
Following weeks of pressure to step down over her handling of anti-Semitism on campus, the president of Harvard resigned yesterday. Reaction to Claudine Gay's decision from Harvard government professor Ryan Enos.
I'm saddened for Harvard and for higher education in the United States because this is higher education being attacked by mob rule. I think it's something that we should be very wary of.
Dual investigations into the crash between two planes at Tokyo's Haneda Airport yesterday. 5 people died. Transport safety officials are looking into the communication between air traffic controllers and the two aircraft to determine what led to the collision. Police are investigating possible negligence. A 30-year-old man is dead after climbing into a plane engine at the Salt Lake City airport. Kyler Effinger ran out into the terminal, through the emergency exit onto the runway, and crawled under the plane. Mark Light is a former airplane mechanic and says it's surprising he even got on the tarmac.
All of the people that are out there, the baggage handlers, the ground crew, are fairly well trained on what they can do, where they can be, where they can't be, kind of things.
The plane's engines were rotating at the time. First responders tried to save him. He died at the scene. It is still unclear why he did it. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
A Dane County judge ruled Tuesday that election clerks can accept absentee ballots that are missing part of a witness's address. The judge ruled that so long as the clerks can discern how to reach the witness from available information, those ballots are acceptable. In 2022, a Waukesha County judge ruled that clerks are no longer allowed to fill in missing witness information. Tuesday's ruling provides uniform rules for how clerks should handle those absentee ballots, says the group that brought the lawsuit. After 3 consecutive years of record-breaking numbers of shootings in Milwaukee, the numbers declined in 2023. Gun crimes are still roughly double that of pre-pandemic levels. As of December 27th, there were 171 homicides in 2023. That's 20% lower than the record 215 homicides in 2022. I'm Nate Muggyhout, Civic Media News.
Badgers beat the Iowa Hawkeyes. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Wisconsin Badgers with a conference win over Iowa, 83-72 at the Kohl Center. Max Klesmit on how valuable Kamari McGee was as a substitute in the game.
Having a guy like that can come off the bench and spark it, life into us, I think it carried over the second half big time. And, that's a credit to Cam and just how much he works, keeps his head down, doesn't let the naysayers, get to him or what the outside noise says. He's really focused individual, and I'm super proud of him the way he's handled himself.
The Badgers have now won 3 in a row. Head coach Greg Gard.
And that's the neat part about watching a team come together. As a coach, you can't orchestrate everything. A lot of that chemistry has to be organic. This group has got some good things going.
NFL former Packers center Ken Bowman has died. Bowman played 10 seasons for Green Bay from 1964 to 1973, including 3 NFL championships. Bowman snapped the ball to Bart Starr on his quarterback sneak to win the Ice Bowl. Kenny Bowman was 81. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
It is going to be a cloudy day today with a few scattered light snow showers or flurries by about midday into the afternoon. Our high right around 35, the wind northwest at 5 to 15. Tonight, mostly clear 23. Tomorrow will be sunny with a high of 31 on Friday, cloudy, high of 36. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Temperature now 30.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Wednesday morning, January 3rd. It's another beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, the Civic Media app, or through our social media video feeds. And if you're listening on demand by podcast, thank you for subscribing and taking us along on your day. We'd love to have you join us at some point. Tell us what's on your mind, what questions in the news we can address for you. Our studio line is 844-967-2789. Again, that's 844-967-2789. You can call that number. You can text that number as well. You can also do so from the Civic Media app, which I understand had some hiccups yesterday, but appears to be rocking and rolling today. So feel free to make use of that, or use your email machine to come find us. Radio at UpNorthNewsWI.com is the email address. And if you're watching on one of the Facebook pages for Civic Media or Up North News or Bull Falls Radio or 93.5 The Tap here in Chippewa Falls, put a message on that live video feed. And if we see it, we will pass it along and maybe address it as well. Here's what we've got coming up this morning. A couple of things to chat about. Several of them related to election ballots in one way or another. Who's on the ballot. Filling out an absentee ballot is going to be on there as well. As far as who's on the ballot, a Wisconsin committee met yesterday to decide which candidates are qualified to appear on the April ballot for Wisconsin's presidential primary. And we'll get into whether Donald Trump's name belongs on the ballot or not. And then later, we will talk to Deborah Cronmiller from the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin about new guidance from a court on absentee ballots and whether every field on that envelope needs to be filled in meticulously, or else you stick the thing in the shredder, or if there's some kind of a whatever you want to call it, a grace period or some wiggle room on getting the information correct enough to know who the voter is when they fill out that ballot. Then in our second hour, we have a live conversation with Jill Underly, the state superintendent of public instruction. We'll talk about the challenges that schools are facing in Wisconsin and the ways that educators are working to keep students and achievement all at a high level. So we have a lot of ground to cover here this morning on this Wednesday, where temperatures are up a bit from yesterday, though I understand there may finally be some snow in the long-term forecast. And meteorologist Brittany Merlot will be joining us at the top of the 7 o'clock hour to tell us more about that. But I can tell you that the 6 o'clock temperatures around Wisconsin look like this here on Lake Wissota, 32 degrees right now. Hayward's at 30, Park Falls 28, Wausau 28 degrees as well. Over in Green Bay, it's 31. La Crosse, you're at 33. Wisconsin Rapids is at 31, as is Oshkosh, as is Madison. And Waukesha is at 30 degrees. And Waukesha is where we find Greg Bach standing by, back from his break.
Hello,
buddy.
everybody.
How you doing?
I'm peachy darn keen, Pat.
You are, aren't you?
I am.
Our schedules were not properly aligned. That you were off the day before my long break, and then yesterday the day back from my long break. But then you had a break somewhere in that as well, and then we've all had a breakdown from time to time. But we didn't break up. So
No.
we're right here, ready to break things on behalf of Civic Media. How are your holidays?
Holidays were really good. They were busy. Christmas, you think, is the first time I'd had like Saturday, Sunday, and then I had Monday and Tuesday off. But it was Saturday, we're going here. Sunday, we're doing this. Monday, we're doing this. And then Tuesday, on the day after Christmas, I just passed out on my couch. And then I worked New Year's Eve weekend. So that was just, there was no relaxing.
Oh, I suppose. So what, Tuesday was your only day of being a sloth?
Yeah. I mean, Monday was pretty slothy too. Yesterday was running errands, which I enjoyed. But Monday was pretty slothy. So I enjoyed those 2 days of rest and relaxation.
Good. We need
How about you?
Well, again, 2 weeks off with kids and grandkids is just a delight. And it wasn't 2 full weeks together. It was about 3-4 days with the younger daughter, and then their kids are 1 and 4.
Okay.
And then the older daughter joined us, and her boys are 9 and 17. Then the younger daughter, then left early after that overlap. And so then we got a couple of days just with our older daughter and her boys. And so all 3 of those phases, each individually, were just dreamy, along with just Sherry and I being able to just travel, just the 2 of us, to bookend the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really, I probably felt like I gushed a lot yesterday. I'm still gushing. I could not have been luckier to have planned out such a nice holiday break. And that, not every year is like that. This was special, and I'm really glad we got a chance to get away.
Good. Well, I'm glad you look well rested and tan and
yes, it was nice. Well, we did a little bit of the electric type of tanning before this trip, and Sherry said yesterday, so are you going to tan this week? I'm like, oh no, I still, our running joke is that I get a tan when I'm cleaning the garage in March. It's just, I tan very, very easily. But it, at some point, I will again resemble the wall behind me, and like a chameleon, I will blend in. But for right now, this works. I think a little sun agrees with me. I think a little sun agrees with us all, because then you have those other days where it's so cloudy and gray, and just, you want to be in a good mood, but the clouds say, nay, the
weather's like, no, you shall be sad.
You shall be blah today. Did you make any significant resolutions? And I will admit that mine are, as I've said, is just about getting back onto the exercise treadmill here, but beyond that, not too much. How about you?
I don't really go for New Year's resolutions. I try to just ask myself, what do I want to do in the entirety of the new year? And part of that is the health, eat a little better, now that we have the dog, being able to go on some good walks.
Oh yeah.
But not really like, all right, as of January 1, I'm going to go run for 2 miles a day, because that would not happen.
No, you just like Kristen Lyerly was saying yesterday, give yourself some grace. You set yourself up for failure. One New Year's tradition I did not engage in this year, and it wasn't something necessarily intentional over the years, but it just kind of became a tradition that New Year's Day, normally I'm just sitting around the house, and I go through and I clean out thousands of emails. I mean, it just seems to be like email purge day. I have not done that because honestly, it got too overwhelming this year. And I'm actually hearing people talk about, that they're just like deleting their entire account and starting from scratch. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to get that crazy.
Seems extreme.
I just feel like, well, I'm just not going to get as bothered as that little number. It becomes a big number on that red dot, on your phone or on your computer screen. Though I will say, I did, and in my case, I've got nothing but Macs here, and so I ran a thing. I think it's Clean My Mac. I also have Daisy Disk, but I ran one of those, and I freed up 20 gigabytes of hard disk space. So,
holy cow!
Well, throughout the day, I'm always downloading. I'm doing either screen captures or downloads of videos. Making videos, and so that was nice to have that done. So it wasn't the email maintenance, but it was still some computer maintenance, and that's disk space I will gladly take.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that too.
And the other
number get above 10,000 on your emails.
I got some news for you. I'm gonna go over to the screen and go look right now here. Let's see if I can see what it is. Um, I'm telling you the truth here. I'm looking at this number right now. This is on my this is what all the press releases and everything comes into.
Yeah.
27,614. I'm not even kidding.
If I have 5 new emails, I'm like, this is too much.
I get 50 at a time on my screen.
Yeah.
And like before noon in the late morning, I'll go back and look for something that came at 7 a.m. and it's already on the next screen. So it's already literally out of sight, out of mind.
Pat's popular.
No, again, press releases. So it's basically like getting rid of your mailbox because you're so sick of the junk mail. And there's days you wish you could do that, but you need the important things that come in. And so you just have to work that much harder to figure it out. And really, it's not about deleting the ones. I got to get off some of these lists. That's really what
me
it
too.
is.
I try every week to like unsubscribe to 5.
Mm-hmm. I love you, La Crosse County, but I don't need every note of every county board committee meeting and that the snowplows went out. And, other people do need that info, if you're depending on where you are, but that's just
You
one
heard it
example
here
of
first.
Yes.
Pat Kreitlow hates La Crosse County.
No. That's not what I
How
said.
could you vote for a man who hates La Crosse, which is French for the cross?
I have such a soft spot for county boards. It's how I cut my teeth as a reporter. Was covering the Eau Claire County Board and the Chippewa County Board. And I don't think I told you this story about my journalism professor, Henry Lippold. I was just crestfallen as a college student that I wasn't given one of the what I thought were the plum assignments, Eau Claire City Council or County Board. I was given the solid waste committee. And of the county board, and anybody who knows Henry knows it goes like this. Oh, Mr. Kreitlow, no, you don't understand. Solid waste committee is where the action is. And it turned out he was absolutely right. There was a very contentious thing with the landfill, and it would eventually the county would sell it, but not without groundwater concerns and privatization concerns. And it's where I really, as a rookie reporter, learned to appreciate all the glory, all the attention goes to the president and Congress, but the things your county board does, the things your school board, the things your state legislature does, those things are huge. And what we're trying to do now is instead of just ignoring those things, like the news consultants are all like, oh, that's boring. And it's like, no, these are important, but let's try to make them conversational and understandable. So it starts there. It starts by saying, that's a lot of email. But I know that what you're doing is important. Don't listen to Greg Bach, La Crosse County Board. I love you. I love you. And when we come back, we'll talk about news that doesn't involve the La Crosse County Board, because frankly, I don't have any news from them. But other things have been going on in the world, and we'll chat more in just a bit, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning. When you're here, you're up north, and we'll be back.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes, don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Radio keeps your community informed, entertained, and connected. It's what we're all about at the Civic Media Network of local radio stations.
We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. This includes a commitment to news. Now we want to invite you to join Civic Media's exclusive Facebook group, Wisconsin Breaking News. It's a place to share your community's news and chat with others from across the state about it.
Join the Facebook group, Wisconsin Breaking News.
We've got State Superintendent Dr. Jill Underly joining us at the top of our next hour as part of our weekly homeroom segment, talking about education issues all across Wisconsin. Also, Deborah Cronmiller from the League of Women Voters will be talking about ballot access in Wisconsin. We'll talk to Brittany Merlot with the forecast. And then coming up in just about 10 minutes or so, we'll have Melissa Baldauff here with our weekly climate check report. And we'll be talking a bit about technology and climate change and ways to make our electric grid better able to connect to clean energy sources. So we'll have that discussion coming up in just a few moments. The Wisconsin Badger men's basketball team, 21st ranked in the country. They beat Iowa last night, 83-72 in Madison for their third straight victory. Wisconsin is now 2-0 in the Big Ten. They are 10-3 overall, and they will host Nebraska on Saturday. The Milwaukee Bucks are in Indiana tonight to play the Pacers. You can catch that game on Oshkosh Air Support, News from the Center, Lake Air in Amory, WRJN in Racine, and 98Q Country up in Park Falls. Hey, Courier Newsroom has, by the way, Courier Newsroom, that's the parent company of Up North News. Courier Newsroom has several newsletters that you might be interested in reading, many of them from friends that join us right here on the radio show. Mark Jacob has Stop the Presses. That's a weekly newsletter about how right-wing extremism has exploited the weaknesses in American journalism and what can be done about it. Kia Vakil, another one of our Friday guests, puts together a bi-weekly newsletter called Frontlines. Carolyn Fiddler has a must-read newsletter on the latest insider news from state capitals across the country called State House Action. Kyle Thorpe has For What It's Worth, a weekly newspaper that breaks down digital spending, strategy, tactics, and trends in election campaigns. And Control Alt-Right Delete is a weekly newsletter by Melissa Ryan, devoted to covering the rise of far-right extremism, white nationalism, disinformation, and online toxicity. And you can sign up for all of these newsletters by, again, heading to our parent company's website, couriernewsroom.com. Again, that's Courier, Courier, couriernewsroom.com. All right, a committee in Wisconsin that puts together presidential primary ballots met yesterday and made the decision as to, who is going to be on the ballot and who is not. And that decision has been made to put Donald Trump on the ballot for the April primary election. As you know, there has been controversy and decisions made in other states, the Colorado Supreme Court, the Maine Secretary of State, for example, that in those cases, Donald Trump is not eligible for the ballot in those states. Now, he is still there pending appeals, and there are going to be appeals in both of those states. But the issue, of course, is whether Donald Trump is an insurrectionist. Did he work to overturn an American election and undermine or even overthrow the government, and as a result is not eligible to run for president? It's a crisis we have not had to face in this country since the Civil War, because we've never had a president try to overthrow the government that he was being kicked out of before. And so you have some people making very principled stands. But again, the rule of law says that this has to be given a chance to appeal and work its way through the courts. And so at some point, the U.S. Supreme Court, dominated by conservatives, will make a ruling on this. But this is a process that we have to let unfold. In Wisconsin, the process unfolds like this. There is a committee that meets on behalf of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, and then the Wisconsin Elections Commission will review what that committee did. And that committee yesterday said that Trump and President Biden and 5 other Republican candidates have qualified to be on Wisconsin's April 2nd presidential primary ballot. And that was, again, done by the state's bipartisan Presidential Preference Selection Committee. The Republicans chosen for the ballot are Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Trump's former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. The committee is comprised of leaders from both parties, and they approved the slate of candidates without debate in a meeting that only lasted for about 5 minutes or so. Again, there has been discussion elsewhere about barring Trump from the ballot. And you may have missed last week while we were off that Kirk Bangstead from the Minocqua Brewing Company filed a complaint with the Wisconsin Elections Commission, arguing that Trump should be disqualified on the grounds of fomenting an insurrection. The Elections Commission dismissed the complaint because it was filed directly against the members of the Elections Commission. Bangstead has said that he plans to file a lawsuit in circuit court, which again would be the next logical step, is that you start with the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Now, as I said yesterday, in case you missed it, the Elections Commission, which is comprised of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, they agreed to, well, they basically dismissed the complaint without any debate whatsoever. And they also agreed not to take any action against the fake Trump electors. And as I noted yesterday, there are 2 of the Democratic members of the commission are attorneys, very, very gifted attorneys, very active Democrats, Mark Thompson and Ann Jacobs, who are passionate about the rule of law. And that while I disagree with their decisions, I know them well enough that I would respect them and abide by them. They are always welcome to, discuss these further if they like. But that obviously, I look at it as a case of Trump did indeed take actions that any state elections official, a secretary of state, an elections commission, whatever the case may be, would find grounds, ample grounds. You see it in the testimony given to the January 6th committee in Congress, in the many criminal proceedings that are currently going on against the former president. There are certainly grounds there. But the battle, if people say, is that the hill you want to die on? The hill that I would want to die on is not necessarily about ballot access. It's one of those where I'd say, well, if it were me, I think he certainly qualifies as an insurrectionist under the 14th Amendment. But in the end, if he's on the ballot, then it's not a fight against Trump. It's a fight for the hearts and minds of our neighbors, some of whom still support Trump, some of whom still support Trump passionately. And that just might be a lost cause. That's a failure of civics. That's a failure of media. That's a failure on an astounding level in America, in my view. But there are people who have leaned toward Trump over the years, who are dissatisfied with, the system in American politics. And I understand the frustrations. I always have. Before I got into politics, and now on the backside, now that I'm not in elected politics anymore, I understand the frustration that comes with the system. But the answer has never been to blow up the system. The answer has been to elect good people, service-minded people who can work toward making all Americans feel more inclusive, making all Americans feel like somebody's looking out for them. We'll talk more about this in the days and weeks ahead, but Melissa Baldauff joins us next with our climate check. You're up north.
WAUK.
CBS News Brief. A senior Hamas leader was killed in Beirut. Lebanese officials blame Israel. CBS's Jared Hill.
In Lebanon, Hezbollah leaders have threatened a severe reaction, while Lebanese officials say the strike violates their sovereignty.
The former president's appealing a ruling to take him off the primary ballot in Maine. Campaign reporter Katrina Kaufman.
Last week, Secretary of State Shenna Bellows disqualified Trump from Maine's ballot for engaging in an insurrection. Bellows had paused her decision to give Trump an opportunity to appeal. The case will now go before Maine's Superior Court.
A 30-year-old man died after running on the tarmac at the Salt Lake City airport and climbing into a plane engine. Passengers are shocked.
Surprised that somebody made it that far.
Seems like especially surprising to get on the air side of an airport on your own.
The aircraft's engines were rotating at the time he died at the scene. CBS News Brief. I'm Stacey Lynn.
For Civic Media News, I'm Nate Wuggehout. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. The names of 6 Republicans and 1 Democrat will appear on Wisconsin's presidential primary ballots for now. That list includes Donald Trump and President Biden. The Presidential Preference Selection Committee met Tuesday morning. Candidates who want to be taken off the list have until the 30th to say so. Candidates who want to be added will have to collect signatures to qualify. Wisconsin's primary is April 2nd. New higher sales taxes are in effect in Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. Local officials voted for the increase last summer as part of a deal to increase the amount of shared revenue that state government returns to local communities. When combined with the state's 5% sales tax, consumers in Milwaukee are paying a 7.9% sales tax, and in the rest of Milwaukee County, it's 5.9%. I'm Nate Wuggehout, Civic Media News.
When I first had my baby, I'd get comments all the time about how happy I must be. I remember thinking, I want to be happy. Why don't I feel that way? It was hard to admit that, even to my doctor, but I'm glad I did. She told me it was postpartum depression, and that is very treatable. These days, things are feeling good, and we're both happier about that. Right, little man? I'll take that as a yes.
Mental health care is working for Simone. See what it can do for you at mentalhealthcareworks.org. A message from the American Psychiatric Association Foundation.
It is going to be a cloudy day today with a few scattered light snow showers or flurries by about midday into the afternoon. Our high right around 35, the wind northwest at 5 to 15. Tonight, mostly clear 23. Tomorrow will be sunny with a high of 31 on Friday. Cloudy, high of 36. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Temperature now 30.
Be a part of the resistance. Check out the Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Monday nights at 7 on the Shaw. 540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK. And on the Civic Media app.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
The Shaw, WAUK.
Latrell spent more than 8 years in foster care. His world changed when he was adopted at 15 with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption.
I think about how much we love him, and I wish we could have had him for his entire childhood.
The foundation is changing the lives of thousands of teens waiting in foster care. You can help. Learn more at davethomasfoundation.org.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Keeping Southeast Wisconsin informed.
It's electric.
All right, we're back for another segment. We're back for another year. Coming off a year that was, the warmest ever measured, so long as we've been measuring these things here on planet Earth. So with that in mind, let's talk about our weekly climate check report. Melissa Baldauff joins us now. Melissa, Happy New Year. Did you have a good holiday break?
Thank you. I did have a wonderful holiday break, although one where I was both grateful for and frustrated by the lack of snow. Grateful for it when we traveled to the Twin Cities to visit family. It was really nice to have clear roads and no concerns about getting to and from. But frustrating because, we always like to get outside and enjoy some winter fun. Do a little sledding, My son and his best buddy, who is our neighbor, they've had a tradition the past number of years that they like to go out at midnight and do snow angels on New Year's Eve. Couldn't do that, obviously.
Nope.
So it's a little bit of a bummer that we don't have any snow on the ground here.
Yeah. Now, obviously, that's going to change at some point, but
Mhm.
then again, we can get into the whole weather versus climate situation here. But in terms of the climate and what we're looking at long term, any given weather extremes brings that to the forefront, whether it's a brown Christmas or unusually large flash flooding, things like that. And in the case of Wisconsin, we have known that Wisconsin is one of the states that will not be where humans won't be as directly involved as, say, living on the coasts or some islands or places in the tropics and places in the Arctic and what have you. Humans may not be affected, but as we learn more about what is the impact of a changing climate, we're learning that there are non-human factors in Wisconsin that could still pack a real wallop, right?
Yes, absolutely. This is a topic that I think has been coming up more and more lately, and quite a spotlight was put on this topic recently in an article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel that discussed a report about the loss of biodiversity in the Great Lakes region. Was one of those that is very important, and Wisconsin is one of the highest risk states for loss of biodiversity in the region. And compared to the rest of the country, Wisconsin is like just outside of the top 10. So that's pretty significant, and it I think it raises a lot of questions. And I think one of the first ones might be, like, what is biodiversity
I
and
was
why is
just
it important?
gonna go there because essentially I think maybe the analogy, maybe it's not perfect, but think of it as dominoes, that maybe the climate doesn't directly impact humans here as much as others, but there will be an impact if you're addressing things like birds, animals, plants, even microbes. In Wisconsin, all of these things do have an impact. You know what, Melissa, we actually talked about this with wetlands all the time. Remember how
Right.
people were trying to weaken wetlands protection because they were like, oh, you can't float a boat in it. But we know wetlands are extremely important to the climate and of course, eventually to human health.
Exactly. I think that's just one of those ideas that, when you stop and think about it, everyone understands, but sometimes it gets kind of lost in the shuffle or just when you're thinking about other big things. But uh, all the kinds of life in an area, it's all there's an interconnection. So you know, if the water is unhealthy, then the animals drinking it, including humans, aren't going to be healthy. If we don't have, you know, um, plants and green spaces that are, conducive to animals being able to have a healthy population, that's going to be a problem for everybody. So, it's just this idea that everything is connected. And even if the impact, like you said, to humans might not be, a devastating one, at least at first, there will be that ripple effect later on if other species are are struggling and are struggling
Right.
to survive, or if they're lost entirely.
Yeah, one that has come up in the past is that as summers get warmer and longer, it will facilitate the growth in the population of ticks that can carry Lyme disease, for example. Or another one would be pollinators. Again, if you don't have those pollinators, that's going to hurt Wisconsin crops in a big way, and that's all about our food supply. There's just so much that is connected, and yeah, it's got this big fancy word biodiversity, and trust me, there's some people who really don't like the word diversity these days, and
That is true.
biodiversity is extremely important.
Exactly. And then, it also relates to another topic we chatted about recently, which is our outdoor tourism and recreation industries in Wisconsin. Those really rely on biodiversity. Fishing and hunting, any of those outdoor activities that people are enjoying rely on biodiversity.
Now, to pivot here to a different topic, and the pivot comes this way through the political world that you and I are used to inhabiting, and we've already talked about how when it comes to, say, wetlands, there are people who don't appreciate the need to protect our wetlands, and in their zest to kill what they think are regulations and bureaucracy, they do damage. Well, this takes us to a new topic, and it's about water cyber security and the cyber attacks on water authorities around the country. And we know how we've seen other institutions in Wisconsin that have faced ransomware and things like that. So you can imagine my surprise and also my anger, Melissa, when you shared an article with me from Axios that talked about how the EPA has been trying to fight cyber attacks against the water supply, but basically Republican attorneys general around the country have been fighting this effort and making it harder for the EPA to protect our water supply from cyber attacks.
Right. It's just one of those things that you just can't really wrap your brain around why anyone would be opposed to this. The US water system is made up of around 150,000 individual systems. And the vast majority of those, 93%, according to American Water Works Association, 93% of those systems serve fewer than 3,000 people. So this is, a very difficult system to to regulate, but it's so important to have some base level, uh, you know, requirements for these systems, and most of them are municipally run entities. They are, you know, short as always on funds. Money is always tight. These are systems that are legacy systems that have been into place for a very long time. So you see that it's going to be a challenge for municipal governments that are strapped for cash to be able to upgrade those. And I mean, we see that with other complicated government run government systems of technology. You saw that was something we saw with, say, the unemployment system in Wisconsin and many other states.
Right.
The technology and the infrastructure is very, very old, and it's been around for a long time. And it's very expensive to upgrade it and have those digital security measures in place, which is all the more reason why we need the federal government to be able to step up and say, hey, states, there's got to be, a bare minimum, a baseline of what needs to happen to protect our water system and to protect our utilities, because we are clearly vulnerable to attacks in this area.
Right. And what we get is we get the pushback from the industry saying, well, we are, like you just said, a whole bunch of small players. Well, that's fine. You can have the federal government and or state governments, try to help assist with the funding, but with the funding would have to have, like you said, some base level of requirements. You can't just say you're putting in an anti-hacking system. It should measure up to certain standards. And what we often hear from folks on the Republican side of the aisle is, well, that's just micromanagement, from the federal government to the state government. But Melissa, I know it's a debate as old as the Republic itself. But if you leave things just up to voluntary compliance from any given industry, you're going to have some folks are going to be responsible. Others are going to do the least amount possible. They're going to take the money and run.
Exactly. And I think that it's really important to have those solutions in place, and to think about that. And we talked about this before with the whole conversation around climate change in general, is that cost benefit analysis of what is the cost of doing nothing, or what is the cost of doing the bare minimum. And the cost of doing nothing and leaving a system vulnerable to attack is something where there's certainly the cost of having to fix it, that real, financial cost, that fiscal cost. And what we've seen so far with some of these attacks, that there actually hasn't been any harm done to the water, to the actual, the impact of the water supply has not, there's not been an impact on the water supply. But there is always that worry and that threat of the real cost of, human health and life if we aren't doing anything.
Right. And so again, at both the state and federal levels, we'll be looking to, see if there's that right blend of carrots and sticks, because again, without that, with people just clinging to, one extreme or the other in this debate, things aren't going to get done. And, we risk great peril if that comes. Now, we're going to run out of time on this week, but I definitely want to come back to something else that you had pointed out, and that is the backlog in our electric grid to connect clean energy. Because of the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, there are all these incentives to create more clean energy systems, but there's a real backlog to getting connected to the grid. Some of it, probably a lot of it real, but I also wouldn't be surprised if money is a factor in some of these players. So I wanted to just tease that, because I think it's something we can look at down the road, maybe even get some, Wisconsin specific information, because it's one thing to create these opportunities. It's another to find obstacles, whether it's in the industry, the regulation, or what have you. I find that really fascinating, because, innovation only takes you so far if there are people, groups, or rules standing in the way.
That's so true. And, I do think, like you said, this is going to be an issue that is ongoing, a really important topic. And, the Biden administration, they set a goal of decarbonizing the grid by 2035, and a lot has to happen to get that done. It is going to require a four times increase in the amount of solar and wind that we are currently generating right now. It's going to be an additional 40 to 90 gigawatts of solar and 70 to 150 gigawatts of wind every year until then to get it done. So, there's a lot that has to happen to meet those goals. And, I think that we're going to continue to talk about the grid and how we are, increasing that interconnectivity to
Yeah.
get some of these projects done.
And again, you don't, Rome wasn't built in a day. You didn't get an entire interstate highway system built in a day. So these are things that have to get done over time, but you still have to be making progress along the way. So much more for us to follow, as we do each week in our Climate Check Report with Melissa Baldauff. Melissa, thank you so much. Have a great start to the new year. Have a great week.
Thank you. You too.
All right. We'll be back. You're Up North.
Robert Hack Diamonds pays cash for your unwanted gold, silver, and even diamonds. That's right. Robert Hack Diamonds wants to make you an offer on your gold, silver, and diamonds. The process is very simple.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
We'll evaluate your unwanted gold, silver, and diamonds and make you an offer on the spot. Then you can decide if you want a deal or no deal. Robert Hack Diamonds can also convert your old jewelry into something new or trade in your outdated pieces for something new and exciting. Many people inherit jewelry that might not be your taste, but you are sentimental. Why not have Robert Hack Diamonds take the golden gems and create something for you? So many options at Robert Hack Diamonds. Again, Robert Hack Diamonds pays cash for your unwanted gold, silver, and diamonds. See them in Brookfield, just east of Moreland on Greenland Avenue, or 76 in Layton, right on the corner in
I'm walking, years and days I'm talking, but you and me, I'm hoping that you come back to me.
That, of course, would be Fats Domino. He recorded I'm Walking on this day in 1957. Melissa Kay is here from locally grown radio in Wisconsin Rapids. Melissa, Happy New Year. How are you?
Happy New Year. I'm good. Good morning. How are you guys?
Great, great. How was your holiday break?
Restful.
Good.
Tried to do nothing.
Yes. I'm all in favor of that. I mean, not on the job. I'm saying when you're off duty,
Right.
do a lot of nothing. So good on you. Any trips, little road trips, anything like that, or a lot of time at home?
No, I literally stayed home. I finished my blanket.
Oh, look at this, Greg.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a blanket.
It's a blanket.
That is
That
It's
looks
crocheted.
warm.
Yes.
It's my lap blanket for work. Keeps me warm and snug.
That's really cool. God, to have actual skills. Well, okay, first off, you can crochet, but again, the category is not all heroes wear capes or crocheted or otherwise. I changed out some light switches around the house. Thank you.
Well
Please.
done,
Keep the
Pat.
applause down here. But
Well done.
Hold on.
look at this. The actual applause is that you see this. All 10 fingers are still here. I did not blow off any of them.
And
I
your
did
hair's not
burn-
standing straight out on
Nope,
end.
did not
so-
burn down the house. I did find out at one point, because it was one of those where it's controlled by two different switches, and I flipped the one switch and then I flipped the other switch and nothing happened. So I realized I connected the wrong wire in one ear. So I had to take it off and put it back on again. But
Oh, so
turns
you
out
even
it doesn't burn the house
troubleshooted.
down. Yes.
Well
I
You were
done.
troubleshooting too, Pat?
I know. Who knew the entire Nobel Committee was here listening to the show? I will.
Yeah.
I'll be in Oslo later to accept that prize. So I've got that going for me. So you crocheted. I changed light switches. And
It was a great weekend.
it was. Yes, we all got things done. What is happening in the world of Wisconsin Rapids Radio over at Locally
Just
Grown?
So many sports. We
Yeah.
got Badger men's basketball, the Greg Gard show. We air all of our local high school sports games. So the boys basketball games, the girls basketball games, and then hockey. We got River Kings hockey on our stations. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So
lots
to
and lots of sports. I'm not a sports person, so
I just like how you
Yay,
said, we've
sports.
got the sports, we've got the the baseball or whatever is there.
We've
so
got the ping pong.
it's all there. So head
Oh,
over-
excuse me. It's called table tennis.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
sorry.
Listen to the elitist over here. So getting back to today's history lesson and music break, happy 79th birthday to Stephen Stills. You
wow.
remember this little thing that he put together?
Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going
He
down.
was born in Buffalo Springfield before forming Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. J.R.R. Tolkien, the English writer, poet, known for Lord of the Rings, of course, was born this day in 1892. Were you a Lord of the Rings reader? or
I
watcher?
loved reading The Hobbit. I did not get into reading The Lord of the Rings, but I enjoyed the movies.
I have a question really quick.
Yeah.
Do you think that J.R.R. Tolkien called the first draft of The Lord of the Rings the prototype?
Prototype. Nice.
Can't believe you didn't.
Nice.
Can't believe you didn't play the wild applause for yourself on that one.
Oh, I know my audience, but Pat, I know my audience. They are unhappy right now.
On this day in 1521, Pope Leo X excommunicated Martin Luther. I guess worked out all right for both of them, I guess. The fifth Beatle, Sir George Martin, was born this day in 1926. He passed away in 2016, but just a most amazing producer, arranger, composer, conductor. I mean, the Beatles would not be what they were. They were geniuses, but what he did with that was just extraordinary.
Took it to the next level.
They had the raw talent. He polished the stone.
Yes, and did
You
he
need those
ever?
stone polishers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. We mentioned that Stephen Stills is 79. John Paul Jones is 78, the bassist for Led Zeppelin. He was born John Richard Baldwin, and he's worked with many other influential bands over the years. This one's going to make it. There's always one birthday that makes you feel older. Do you remember the Wonder Years? You ever watch the Wonder Years? Remember Winnie Cooper?
Pat.
What?
Do I remember Winnie Cooper? I was.
Hey, settle down.
They were like this.
He wishes.
She's 3 years older than me. I crushed on her the moment I saw her on screen. Do I remember?
Winnie Cooper is 49 today. Let's quickly move on from there. Also 49 today is Thomas Bangalter, the one half of Daft Punk.
Love that group.
Eli Manning is 43 years old today. Alaska was admitted as the 49th state on this day in 1959. And let's see, the Arsenio Hall Show debuted on this day in 1989. And Arsenio had a really good run. Obviously, there needed to be an alternative to Johnny Carson. Then Johnny Carson retired, and you had, the whole Letterman thing, and Arsenio was kind of the odd man out. I'm still a little surprised. I really thought Arsenio's show would last a little longer. I wasn't a regular viewer, but it definitely had such a huge influence on late night back at that point. And I
helped get
know
Bill
that
Clinton elected.
Sure did. And Melissa, I know you weren't much of a TV watcher when you were younger. When you did you have like a preference in? Were you a Leno or a Letterman or an Arsenio?
I guess
person?
if I had to pick Letterman.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Not that I watched it much, but that's the one I remember better.
Sure. B.J. Thomas had the number one song this day in 1970.
Raindrops are falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed.
And as long as we're doing songs from the 70s.
Are you looking for flies over there, Greg?
No, he's very interpretive, looking for raindrops dance. Wait till you see. Now, for this next one, he's going to put on roller skates with the pom-poms on it, because that's what everybody was wearing when the Bay City Rollers had a number one song this day in 1976.
Expect me to do so much here.
That's right. This is an all skate. I'm telling you.
You guys got to watch the Facebook feed, because
if you ever get a chance, you should be listening to your favorite Civic Media radio station, but do feel free to chime in now, check in now and then on that video feed as Greg provides an interpretive retelling of every song that comes on. Also, the Dave Matthews Band became the first major artist to release a song on Napster when they put the song I Did It on the controversial file sharing platform. Melissa, so glad you had a great holiday break, and Happy New Year to you, and look forward to many more Wednesday visits throughout a very fun new year.
We'll try to make them consistent this year.
We will get that done. All right. Thank you so much, Melissa. Have a great day. And when we come back,
guys.
State Superintendent Dr. Jill Underly right after news. You're up north.
From 8 till 10 on
right. Thanks, Melissa.
540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK. Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is the CBS World News Roundup, sponsored by Staples.
I'm Stacey Lynn. Learning new details about the deadly and fiery crash between two planes at Tokyo's Haneda Airport yesterday. CBS's Lucy Kraft is in Tokyo.
While the Japan Airlines pilot was instructed to enter the runway, the Coast Guard pilot was told to hold short of the runway or to stop before entering it. The pilot, who was severely injured, said that he had received runway clearance.
All 379 people on the Japan Airlines plane were able to get out after it burst into flames, but 5 of the Coast Guard crew members died. The captain was able to escape but was badly injured. Hamas says an explosion in Beirut killed one of its top leaders. Lebanon blames Israel, but CBS's Cami McCormick tells us
Israel hasn't acknowledged it was behind the attack. In the West Bank, there were protests by Palestinians.
All right, Jill, good morning. Are you with me there? Hope I don't hear you yet.
I muted myself. Good morning.
Oh, there we go. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. So we are in a radio station news break here, but the folks on Facebook can still see and hear us while this is going on. Did you have good Christmas?
I did. Everybody was healthy. How about in your home?
Same. We got
Good.
a really great holiday break off here. And let's see, I'm just grabbing my notes so that we're all good to go for topics today. Really appreciated your kind words on the passing of Senator Cole. So I wanted to touch on that. And then, definitely get into all the other recent matters here. You were traveling as well?
I just went the day after Christmas to visit some family, but otherwise we were here in Southwest Wisconsin the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Sounds
nice.
great. Okay, so what we'll do is we just turned 7:02. We'll start off the hour at 7:06. We actually have a meteorologist who joins us right off the top with a weather report, and
Okay.
then we'll get going as soon as she wraps that up.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to tuck you back into the waiting room here, but you still should be able to hear us fine, and I'll pull you back up during Brittany's weather. All right, here you go.
Are dropping. AAA says the price for a gallon of regular has fallen under $3 across most of the country. Of course, that's not the case everywhere. If you live in Hawaii, California, and Washington state, you're still paying over $4 a gallon. This is CBS News.
Staples stores provide innovative products and services for small business, remote workers and learners, even teachers and parents. Explore more at your local Staples store.
For Civic Media News, I'm Nate Wegehout. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. A Dane County judge ruled Tuesday that election clerks can accept absentee ballots that are missing part of a witness's address. The judge ruled that so long as the clerks can discern how to reach the witness from available information, those ballots are acceptable. In 2022, a Waukesha County judge ruled that clerks are no longer allowed to fill in missing witness information. Tuesday's ruling provides uniform rules for how clerks should handle those absentee ballots, says the group that brought the lawsuit. After 3 consecutive years of record-breaking numbers of shootings in Milwaukee, the numbers declined in 2023. Gun crimes are still roughly double that of pre-pandemic levels. As of December 27th, there were 171 homicides in 2023. That's 20% lower than the record 215 homicides in 2022. I'm Nate Wegehout, Civic Media News.
Here come the Bears. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Green Bay Packers host the Chicago Bears Sunday at 3:25 at Lambeau Field. Now, if the Packers win, they're in the playoffs. But the Bears have improved. They won 4 of their last 5 games, including beating the division leaders, the Detroit Lions. Matt LaFleur.
It really means nothing unless we take care of business in Lambeau. We were in a similar situation a year ago and couldn't get it done. So we know it's going to be a tremendous challenge. I think Chicago is improved.
Sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
It is going to be a cloudy day today with a few scattered light snow showers or flurries by about midday into the afternoon. Our high right around 35, the wind northwest at 5 to 15. Tonight, mostly clear 23. Tomorrow will be sunny with a high of 31 on Friday. Cloudy, high of 36. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Temperature now 30.
This is your hometown radio, Refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network. Waukesha, home of
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
On this Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024, it is 6 minutes past 7 o'clock across the Civic Media Radio Network. Nice to have you along. We're coming up in just a bit here. I'm going to talk to Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. Jill Underly, about some of the issues that are facing education in Wisconsin. And then in our second half hour, Deborah Cronmiller from the League of Women Voters joins us to talk about some new guidance regarding absentee ballot access in Wisconsin, where the rules aren't as ironclad, and I mean ironclad to the point where it was getting to be too easy to take voters' best efforts at voting and stick those ballots into the shredder. And that'll be a little tougher for certain people to do based on new guidance that was put out yesterday. But first, we're going to get an update on the weather forecast. Civic Media meteorologist Brittany Merlot joins us from Wausau now, where temperatures in the state have been ranging right around the freezing mark today. And let's see what we've got for the rest of the day and into midweek. Brittany, good morning.
Good morning. How was your commute in, or have you been outside? Have you seen if it's drizzling out there yet?
Brittany, my commute consists of going from the coffee pot and taking about 4 steps into my home office here. And then once every 3 to 4 days or so, my wife pushes me out the door and says, go outside and play and go get some fresh air. So I have not broken my hermit-like existence, and entirely dependent upon you to tell. You could tell me it's raining cats and dogs right now, and until I open these drapes, I wouldn't know.
Oh, that's amazing. You are lucky. We want that. Well,
I am,
a
but
little bit on radar right now.
Yeah. So tell us more about what we're getting.
Yeah, so it looks like Lake Chippewa up towards Hayward, St. Croix up there, Park Falls, maybe off 77 and 13. You're starting to see some drizzle kind of going on, and with our temperatures hovering right around that freezing mark across the state, we could see some icy spots out there, especially if there's any untreated surfaces. So the first thing I want you to pay attention to if you're up north is make sure that when you step out the door, it's not icy and slippery. I've had that happen to me before during these conditions. So that's the first heads up this morning. But if you're not leaving, you're good to go. It's a pretty easy day today. We just got a cold front pushing in and not much to deal with besides that. So as it drops through the state today, it's going to bring chances for flurries. So our temperatures are in the low 30s right now. As we hit towards 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, that whole front will pass through the entire state at this point, and then we'll be sitting in those upper 20s and continuing to crash cold tonight. So we've got this cold air sitting on our back doorstep, and that's going to create a little bit of a problem. So what that means is this drizzle up north, still freezing in some spots, flipping over to flurries, some light snow showers throughout the state throughout the afternoon. Very, very light. I'm talking a trace to a half an inch would be max. And I think the half an inch is going to be up towards the Hayward, Eau Claire kind of area. So as that drops down, I mean, Milwaukee, you could even see a few flurries, but no accumulations are expected. Otherwise, just cloudy skies today and teens tonight.
All
Getting
right.
chilly out there.
Sounds like it. Yeah, Brittany, I appreciate the note on the untreated surfaces. I know right before Christmas one day, I stepped out of my Jeep and onto an icy patch, and I looked like the full cartoon character, with the feet going up either side from out of me. didn't break my coccyx, but it did remind me that that's a really funny word about what can happen to you if you fall on these slippery surfaces. So watch out for that. Hey, Brittany Murillo, thank you so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Let's bring in Dr. Jill Underly now, State Superintendent of Public Instruction from the Wisconsin DPI. Dr. Underly, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Nice to have you along here, especially as we start off a new year. And in doing so, we get to talk about, the challenges that are facing public education overall in Wisconsin. We're at the start of a calendar year. We're in the middle of a school year. But how would you talk about the current state of education as Wisconsin heads into 2024?
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, we are approaching the end of that first semester for so many kids. And what we're seeing, I think the challenges we're going into 2024 are still there, the same ones from 2023 and before. But there's just a lot of reasons for hope too. But what we're seeing right now in our communities, we're out talking to people with our strategic planning process. And so we're hearing directly from Wisconsin school personnel and families and library staff and even students about what their challenges are. And we're hearing about shortages of teachers still in the classroom and support professionals such as like food service workers and bus drivers. We're also hearing about achievement and wanting special education funding specifically because that benefits every school in Wisconsin if we're able to increase that. We're hearing about transportation challenges, mental health still, that's on the minds of a lot of parents and teachers, and the need for additional support in our schools, especially to help students. And we're also hearing about, just the worries around the ugly partisan and extremist rhetoric that we read in the media or that we see on TV or we just hear. It's contributing, of course, to additional stress and anxiety. And when we talk to teachers or administrators, why they are leaving, perhaps, parents see this too. It's because they're concerned about, the politicization and the extremist language that is being used in our schools. And yeah, those voices are a small minority, but it's really a distraction.
Well, they're a loud minority. They have been building since 2011, and not just in Wisconsin. We're seeing, yesterday with the resignation of the president of Harvard, and of course the Wisconsin legislature's attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Right.
We're seeing attacks on education from new fronts, not just the usual fronts of taxation. Now we're hearing more about book banning and all of this.
Yeah.
And through it all, we often say, well, teachers are still doing their best. Educators are still doing their best because there's still some good quality out there. But that's not to say that these challenges aren't extremely real. When you've got support staff competing essentially with the school districts are competing with Quick Trip, for the, support employees that keep the cafeteria and the library running. These challenges are real.
Yeah, and you've got teachers also. I mean, they've got these transferable skills that a lot of corporations and companies want, right? And their employees, strong work ethic, they have degrees, they are organized. There's a lot of things that, teachers bring to the package, and they are getting poached from school districts. But you're right, Pat, when you think about the attacks have started since 2011, you think about like the attacks on teachers and public service workers, you think about the attacks then on curriculum, in the past couple of years, and then attacks on LGBTQ and trans kids in particular. And now we've got attacks on libraries and books and people are tired of it. I mean, these are distractions and it's really hurtful, what's going on, and it's distracting from the real work that we need to do.
So for a time there, part of the message that was coming out was get involved, run for school board, for example. We talked about that a lot in November and December. Well, now yesterday was the filing deadline. So, the people who are going to run. So now looking forward from there for folks who are supporters of public education in Wisconsin, what is it that you'd like to see them do more of?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very critical piece, just being vocal about your support for your public schools. You think running for office is a great way to do it, but if not everybody can run for office, nor does anybody, not everybody wants to run for office. But certainly just being supportive, going to the meetings, being a supportive voice, supporting the teachers, supporting the principals and the superintendents, reaching out to them, like I know we have like weeks, like Public School Appreciation Week or School Board Week, and those are coming up. But I mean, outside of those times, just a note of appreciation. I know that, we always think about this season of gratitude, right? In the winter months, and just getting a note. I'll tell you what, that always made my day. That always made me feel, supported, and just hearing from parents. And keeping those lines of communications open between parents and teachers is extremely important too for support.
Yeah, so show that communication, show up at the meetings, show up on election days, which will be, April 2nd for this time around. Dr. Jill Underly is joining us for this portion of Up North News Radio. And before I take a short break here, I don't want to forget, in noting the passing of former U.S. Senator Herb Kohl, your kind words, and rightly so, recognizing his leadership for education in Wisconsin.
Yeah, he was certainly a champion for public education and school kids. And he had so many gifts and so many talents that he graciously shared with all of us in Wisconsin. I mean, he was, not only a senator, as I had said in the statement, but, a successful businessman, philanthropist. He was a sports leader. He was a community leader. He was really the best friend that Wisconsin schools, educators, and kids could have. And he has left us an incredible legacy here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, through leadership and through that recognition that while he was, born into means, it did not mean that, that he could not be generous with the gifts that he had amassed, through hard work, but also through the efforts of his other family. It contrasts with other folks who unfortunately are really influencing Wisconsin politics with a whole lot of money poured into the political system rather than in support for our schools. And so that's one way that we're missing former Senator Kohl in a big way. Talking to Dr. Jill Underly here. Again, with folks looking at school board elections, they're going to hear about, they're going to get, I mean, there's more political advertising than ever before for local school board races. What do you hope voters keep in mind when they start to hear some of these political messages?
Yeah. So what I hope voters keep in mind is that public schools are for everybody. They are, our community stalwart, right? They are for every kid. Doesn't matter your background or your means or who your parents are or any of that stuff. And they are supposed to be nonpartisan because they are for everybody. And when you think about it, at the end of the day, this is a message I always, would talk about with my school board, is that we all want the same things, right? We all want a great school in our community. We all want our kids to be healthy and successful. We want great teachers. We want strong leaders. And we want to graduate great kids so that they can go out and return the favor in our communities. And it's supposed to be nonpartisan. And that's where we're falling away, not kind of falling away. We are falling away from that idea that public schools are for everyone.
Let's talk about getting back to that in just over 60 seconds with Dr. Jill Underly next here up north.
The Shaw, WAUK.
If I could be you.
And you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion, along with the growth and development of all current and future employees. If you're interested or are part of an
Instruction with the Wisconsin DPI. And when we were communicating about getting together today, there's just a very simple phrase that was in one of your emails that I think puts it so concisely what we should be fighting for in education circles today, given some of the current challenges. And all it says here is protecting the freedom to read. And that's really what this is about. It's not somebody else gets to impose their moral code on other parents, but protecting the freedom to read as well as the freedom to teach. Talk more about the importance of that for you.
Yeah, so the freedom to read is at the heart of our schools and our public libraries. And as state superintendent, I oversee the public schools and public libraries in Wisconsin. And that is truly what we believe. And we all should believe in the freedom to read. Everyone deserves access to information from all different perspectives. We should all be able to find something that meets our needs in our libraries. Libraries are the spaces that are free of judgment. And our schools and our public libraries provide that inclusive, welcoming space that provides incredible opportunities for our children to grow as readers, as learners, and as people. And you think about even as adults, I mean, we are continually growing, right? And we're constantly looking up information and having that access to that information so that we can grow as learners well after we're finished with school. And so we need to protect that right.
So as you see these attacks on on curriculum and on books and on even programs to be more diverse and inclusive, and we see more of that in Wisconsin. What is it that you think motivates that? When you see somebody like the Speaker of the Wisconsin Assembly, Robin Voss, almost single-handedly trying to bully, say, the UW system out of its diversity, equity, and inclusion, programs and taking away funding and all of that. What is it that motivates that kind of action against education at all levels?
Well, I think it motivates the base, right, of the people that these politicians are trying to motivate to vote, right? And there's a lot of misinformation out there about what books, for example, are accessible to certain grades in different schools. And so people get outraged over, what's available. And then it's not true. It's not accurate, what these individuals are saying in order to whip up this outrage. And then it turns public schools into, it fuels distrust, right? And fueling distrust in our public institutions is, that's certainly one of the things in the playbook if you're going to undermine democracy. When you don't have trust in your public institutions, that's certainly you're on the road to, a society that is not free.
And so before the holidays, we had this case where the UW Board of Regents was asked to vote on something that had been worked out between Voss and Jay Rothman, the president of the Universities of Wisconsin. There was a vote by the regents first to reject it, but then there was a reversal. As somebody who's a voting member of it, I mean, what did you make of the two votes and the debate that surrounded all of that?
Yeah, frankly, I think that the process was unacceptable. I mean, this was not something that should have happened at all. The legislature had put the regents in a bad spot because these pay raises in the campus buildings were already approved by the legislature in the budget. And then they were taken out and essentially held hostage unless they met these politically motivated demands. And as a regent, I mean, I remain incredibly committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they are the guiding principles for our work and the foundation of our work at the department. And we're going to continue the important work of closing those gaps in making sure our students of color and LGBT students and all marginalized students feel safe and included. But yeah, going back to the process, I wasn't really able to fully participate in the process. I respected the process, however, even if outside forces weren't respecting the process. But yeah, it should not have rolled out that way. Regents were put in a bad spot.
Well, and you've been a leader on this issue from a public instruction standpoint. Your, state of education addresses have not shied away at all from talking about the importance that should come with having every student feel included, whatever their circumstance. Why is that such a primary motivation for you when talking about public education writ large?
Well, that's going back to what I said before, it's like public education and having trust in our public institutions. People don't know this about me, but I majored in history when I was an undergraduate student, and I was fascinated with the history of education. And you think about why public schools were started in the first place, or how they looked even 200 years ago. Girls couldn't attend schools in high school, for example. They could maybe attend up to like 6th grade or 8th grade. You could only attend school if you had money. So I mean, we've come a long way. And when you think about why we have public education, it's because it is for everybody. Everybody needs to feel included. Everybody needs to be included. Everybody needs to be safe. And in order for our society to flourish, you need to have inclusion, and you need to have programs that help inclusive practices prosper too.
Well, isn't it really, when it gets to the root level of it, for all of the folks that say, well, you just need to get back to basics and teach the basics of learning, it feels like you're actually you're setting the basics for the basics. In other words, we've said it about hungry kids. You can't learn if you're hungry. But similarly, you can't learn if you're being bullied. You can't learn if you're being marginalized.
Right. You think about work, right? I mean, I think adults think, oh, when I was in school, this is how it was. But you think about like work nowadays too. I mean, when you're at work, if you're being harassed at work, or if you were being discriminated discriminated against at work, you want somebody to do something or you leave, right? And that's really, we have to transfer that to the experiences of individuals learning. I mean, these are kids, first of all, and we have adults transferring their problems onto kids, and they are, creating laws that attack kids. I mean, they're creating laws that attack the most vulnerable kids, right? And, as state superintendent, as a parent, I'm always going to be fighting to make sure that all kids are included, and not just in elementary and secondary, but in higher ed too. I mean, we have to do better.
Well, and that's putting it mildly, and that's where we need people who are being an advocate for the kids, not just from the basics of the lessons, but the freedom that comes in the curriculum, but also the freedom to be able to learn and be free from some of these external factors like discrimination, like hunger, like other disparities. So Dr. Jill Underly is leading the way on that as superintendent of the Department of Public Instruction. Dr. Underly, thank you so much. It was great to get an update from you. Hope you have a great start to the new year.
Yeah, thanks for the chat, Pat. It was great. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Take care now. Again, Dr. Underly. And as always, when we have guests on, and if you want to follow up with any questions or concerns, you can always call us here at 844-967-2789. You can call that number or you can text it. You can email us, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. And if you're watching on any of the live video feeds on our Facebook pages for Civic Media or for Up North News, put a comment there and we'll take a look and try to respond to that as well. When we come back, we will talk to Deb Kronmiller from the League of Women Voters. There's been some changes, some guidance, added guidance in how to handle absentee ballots in Wisconsin so that we can make sure that your vote counts if you vote absentee. That's coming up in just a bit. You're Up North.
The children's hell will slowly go by and feed.
All right, we're on break. Jill, thank you again so very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anytime you need me to come back, I'm happy to. Thank you.
Wonderful. Glad to hear that. All right, have a great day.
The
Thank you, Abby.
passenger jet was given permission to land while the Coast Guard was not cleared for takeoff. But CBS's Elizabeth Palmer tells us.
I have to say that the Coast Guard aircraft's pilot still says that he did have permission to proceed.
A top Hamas leader who was behind the October 7th attack was killed in a bombing in Lebanon. The BBC's Yolande Nell.
We've had threats being made by Hezbollah, which is, of course, the powerful Lebanese armed group, saying that this will not go without a response or without a punishment.
CBS's Jared Hill reports COVID, flu, and RSV cases are on the rise.
31 states are reporting high or very high levels of various respiratory illnesses. The uptick leading hospitals in several states and Washington, D.C. to bring back masking requirements.
CBS News Brief. I'm Stacey Lynn.
Well, Deborah, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great, great. Thank you again for being here. And you have to remind me from back in May. Is it Kronmiller?
Miller, yep.
Saying it right. And Deborah.
Deborah is fine.
Deborah, okay.
Deb is fine too.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have a strong preference. And like I said, we'll get going in exactly 2 minutes on that, and yeah, we'll have a nice little block of time to talk. So, thanks so much. Are there other activities going on that we should let the audience know about that the League of Women Voters is up to?
Well, we're preparing for 24's elections, that's for sure. This week we will be standing up some information kind of in remembrance of January 6th and how that was an attack on voters too, another different kind of attack, but clearly an attack. And like always, we're just trying to ensure that voters' voices are heard.
Mm-hmm. And have you gotten into at all the debate about Trump's eligibility for the ballot?
We have not. Our nonpartisan policy at the league really prevents us from talking about specific candidates in any, iteration. We hope that in courts across the United States that, this is decided once and for all. This is actually a terrible dilemma for voters to not know who might be the nominee, whether that nominee, can be on their ballot. It's confusion that could be avoided with a solid court decision that says up or down.
Okay, very good. Okay, sounds great. Well, we've got just about 45 seconds till we're on, so I'm going to bring this up full, and we will we'll get this thing started in just a little bit.
Great,
thanks, Deborah. All right, hang tight.
Adopted at 15 with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption.
I think about how much we love him, and I wish we could have had him for his entire childhood.
The foundation is changing the lives of thousands of teens waiting in foster care. You can help. Learn more at davethomasfoundation.org.
Back now on Up North News Radio at 7:34 on this Wednesday morning. Nice to have you along as we get started with a new year. There's some election days to tell you about. There are 4 of them to be exact. We mentioned this in our daily emailed newsletter. You can sign up for it over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. And what we want you to not do is to say, what, it's election day again? How did that sneak up on us? It's not going to sneak up on you. There are some big days to know about, and let's start with the general elections. As you know, we have spring elections in Wisconsin, primarily for local nonpartisan races. We have then the big general partisan election in November, but then there's primary elections before that. So that's why there's 4 election days this year to know about. The first one is going to come up February 20th. That's if there's any primary elections. For April 2nd, which is the general spring election, but it's also Wisconsin's presidential primary. And then, of course, everybody's talking about, November 5th, which will be a presidential election, and for U.S. Senate, legislature, all these other seats. The primary for that one will be August 13th, which often doesn't get its due. So you're going to hear a lot about the importance of making sure you vote August 13th. Well, it's the middle of summer. And so a lot of people aren't going to want to necessarily show up and vote. They might have other summer plans, which is why we have absentee balloting in Wisconsin. And there are some changes, or maybe clarifications would be a better way to put it, in terms of the guidance for that. And so Deborah Kronmiller is going to join us to talk about that from the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. Deborah, nice to have you here again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Pat. Thank you for having me.
So when we talk about ballots, and I mentioned this at the top of the show this morning, that there's 3 different possible topics. One is who's on the next ballot. And that was decided yesterday by a bipartisan commission that put on President Biden for the presidential primary ballot, some other Republican candidates, also former President Trump. So now we know who's on the ballot. There's the second matter of, should former President Trump be on the ballot, the controversy over his eligibility, as we're seeing in Colorado and other states. And then the third thing about the ballot, and our main topic, will be the absentee ballot rules. So let's dispatch of the other ones here just for a moment. We know that there will be, which candidates will be on the ballot. And those ones, again, are Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. In terms of the eligibility of Trump to be on the ballot, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. So I understand that the league does not take a position on eligibility. What you're really all about is what? Stability and certainty for the voters. So the voters know what their options are one way or the other, right?
Correct. We've been putting out voter information for 103 years. Our hope, our intent is to ensure that voters have the information that they need to make the choice they want to make with regard to what candidate they vote for. Our voter guide, the Vote 411 guide across the state and across the nation, helps voters to understand candidates at all levels of government. And we think this is one of the most important services that we provide to voters.
Yeah. So the sooner that voters have that certainty, not just in Wisconsin, but in Colorado and Maine and other places, the better for voters, so that you can really get into that next part, which is encouraging people to vote, educating them on how to vote, but then especially in the area, for the purposes of this discussion, voting absentee. And absentee voting really has changed over the years. Many people say for the better, that it makes it easier for every eligible voter to vote. Not everybody necessarily agrees, but Deborah, talk about the importance of absentee ballot availability for people who want to vote in some of these things, like an August primary in the middle of summer.
Right. We think that the absentee ballot, and in Wisconsin, where our absentee ballots are available to anyone who chooses to have them, we don't need an excuse to get an absentee ballot here in this state. And that's a wonderful advantage for voters. But we do have other barriers to voting. We have the strong ID rules. We have strong proof of residency rules. Those are issues that the league has fought against. We'd like to make access to the ballot even more widely available. But within the system we have, we try to educate voters to ensure that if they avail themselves of an absentee ballot, if they vote at their polling place on election day, their vote will count. And yesterday's very important decision in the Dane County Circuit Court is just one step toward ensuring that that vote will count, that if there's a immaterial witness signature error in having nothing to do with the voter's eligibility, their qualification as a citizen, their age, their residency, that ballot will count. And going back all the way to 2022 in the White case, the judge in that case decided that the guidance that the Wisconsin Election Commission had previously issued and had been used by clerks in Wisconsin for years to cure or fix a missing piece of information, or if the witness had written same in the address for the witness, indicating they had the same address as the voter themselves. Clerks had always been able to just say that the address was in fact the voter's address. Well, the White decision threw some wrench into that works and really created uncertainty about what clerks should do. Some clerks decided they could still remedy, some clerks decided they couldn't. And that, kind of disparity in how voters were being treated is what brought the League of Women Voters back to the courts to get some clarity on that particular issue. And in fact, what the ruling said yesterday was using the materiality clause of Section 101 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that no person should be denied their right to vote due to an immaterial error, a paperwork type of problem, because that has nothing to do with determining their eligibility as a voter.
Right. In Tuesday's order, the Dane County Circuit Court wrote, quote, "The witness address requirement is not material to whether a voter is qualified. As such, rejecting ballots for trivial mistakes in the witness address requirement directly violates the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. And look, I'm the one who gets to use stronger language here, but you were the one that has been fighting for this. There are people out there, in my estimation, of rather nefarious intent, who, for the most minor of circumstances, would want to challenge and toss out absentee ballots. And I don't see how that isn't as bad a violation of the Civil Rights Act as, say the poll taxes and the other things of old. Any barrier to voting that isn't based in, outright intentional fraud deserves to be challenged in court by groups like yours.
Yes, and that's what we've been doing, and we will continue to do it. A voter's right is sacred, and it's guaranteed in the Constitution. Our statutes in Wisconsin lay out some additional restrictions for voting, but as long as you are an eligible voter, your vote should count. And I can't agree with you more, Pat, that if you were a person with a physical disability, cannot walk physically into a polling place, you should be entitled to use curbside voting. That's what our statutes say. Curbside voting is not employed equally throughout all polling places in Wisconsin. And we fight every day to make sure that that does happen, because it is the voter's right to have that access. And using absentee ballot, making sure it's counted, it's the same fight in just a different iteration.
Right. And now let's not give the impression that voters should be intentionally sloppy with their ballot either. I mean, with voting does come a degree of responsibility, right?
Absolutely. And the advice that the league has been giving for years for individuals using absentee ballots is to be careful with that ballot. Make sure that all the voter information is completed accurately. Make sure that your witness information is fully completed. And that is just one step a voter can take to ensure that their ballot will be counted. But what we have seen, and why we brought this case in court, is that there are some individuals who, when their spouse wrote in same, the voter saw that as, well, of course it is. We're married. We live in the same house. We own this property together. And they didn't see that that was an incompletion or incompletely filling out that witness signature box. And because in their mind, it was filled out. It's the same.
It is. It makes sense to them. And now this court is saying it should make sense to an average person discerning where you can find that voter. Let's get to the presidential primary for a moment. We've got a great text question that came in from Bud in Janesville. And this gets asked for basically every primary, but certainly for every presidential primary. Bud writes, can I, as a Democrat, vote for a Republican other than Trump? And it should just say for any Republican, but we know where Bud stands. Bud's asking, can I, as a Democrat, vote for a Republican other than Trump in April? Let's go ahead and make it writ large. Can a self-identified Democrat vote for a Republican candidate in the presidential or any other primary?
Yes. In Wisconsin, we do not need to declare a party affiliation. However, we need to stay within the same party on any given ballot. So if someone who would self-identify as a Democrat wants to vote for the Republican candidates, they can do so, but they can't just choose the presidential candidate. They would have to vote the whole slate of Republicans and not vote for any Democrats on the ballot, top or down ballot.
It's like this double-edged sword. You have this freedom that you don't have to declare, you don't have to register as a Republican or Democrat, unlike in other states. But it does lead to this scenario that we hear about all the time. And this is going to happen come August, for example. There's going to be a contentious primary for, say, county sheriff amongst two Republicans, but there's also a primary amongst, two Democrats for a seat in the legislature. And because there's no, say, Democratic sheriff candidate, people know that if they vote in the primary, that's going to decide who's going to be the sheriff, but now they can't vote in the Democratic primary. That leads to this question, and I don't know if you necessarily know the answer. The states that do require you to register as a Democrat or a Republican and the states that don't, isn't Wisconsin kind of like an outlier, unique amongst other states, or not?
We are an outlier in that regard because our ballot actually shows all of the candidates. However, they're broken on the ballot into all of the races for that particular party. So if you choose to vote in the Republican section of the ballot, you need to stay in the Republican section. You can't choose one Republican and one Democrat, one independent. That will spoil your ballot. And the instructions will be clear from your poll worker. The instructions you receive with your absentee ballot will be clear. Because we have all of the choices on a single ballot and you're not being issued the party's ballot, it's the onus is on the voter to be careful and not cross parties.
Yeah, it's one of those ways of saying, look, here in Wisconsin, you have that freedom that you don't have to declare a party, but that doesn't mean you can go over and make mischief over in somebody's other party, tempting as that is at some point. Quickly, time for one more question here. And I asked off air what you were doing, what else you were doing to start the year. You're noting that January 6th is coming up, and that was truly an attack on not just the government, it was on voters as well, right?
It certainly was. I think when voters cast their ballots and our electors are chosen and duly appointed, they need we need our voices to be heard, and that's the system that we have according to the Constitution. And trying to disrupt that system was a huge injustice to voters. And I really think that our democracy is as strong as its voters are. And as we stand up and try to remember that this was an assault on the individuals who make our democracy what it is.
Yeah, any effort to change the results of a free and fair election is an attack on all voters. Deborah Kronmiller from the Wisconsin League of Women Voters. As always, such a pleasure to talk to you, Deborah. Come back again soon. And we're going to have a very busy year ahead of us.
We are indeed. We're getting ready.
That's right. All right. Thanks, Deborah. Have a great day. We'll come back and we will talk to Todd Allbaugh from the conveniently named Todd Allbaugh Show and wrap up our conversation for this Wednesday. You're Up North. Right. And we're
WAUK.
Thanks, Deborah.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training
A certified direct care professional. You'll learn the skills you need to make life better for older adults or people with a disability. All training is free and online. Plus, earn $500 in bonuses. Start your new career. Sign up today at wiscaregivercdcp.com. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
So I've got this New Year's resolution to be a little bit nicer, maybe not quite as sarcastic all the time. And then Todd Allbaugh shows up, and he makes it so darn easy to just completely go against that. Todd Allbaugh joins us now as he continues spinning his. Are you spinning your phone or your computer sideways repeatedly over there, young man? And now he can't hear us either. Greg, what are we gonna do with Todd Allbaugh? You're through the video screen. We are making all kinds of hand gestures.
How about now, Todd?
How about, hey, you took your mic off mute. There you go, buddy. Come on, let's do it. Oh, he's resetting his video and his audio again.
Welcome to radio in
his palatial
2024.
home office. Yeah. Here's the thing. Todd sends a text message about a minute ago or so saying that he needs the link. Well, I went back, Greg, and I checked because one of my other New Year's resolutions was to be more like Todd and Aaron Zommers, former board operator here in the morning, who's now the board operator for Todd Allbaugh.
Yeah.
Aaron
and
sends out the information on how to join the show a week in advance. Because you have to click on, this computer link or that computer. It's a different link every day for security reasons to join the show.
Yeah.
I usually send them out the day before.
Okay.
But for Todd for Aaron rather, as part of Todd's show, Mr. Zommers sends out those links, a week in advance. And I thought I'm going to be more like Aaron. And so last weekend, I prepared all of this week's links ahead of time, and I emailed them to all the guests and all the regulars. And I'm looking right now, and I'm looking at Todd's name. It's right there. I sent him the link, but he still didn't have it. And now he's got the link, and he still can't get his computer or phone to work either.
Pat, I have something for you. Pat, I have something for you.
What do you have? Thank you. Oh my God. Again, I did not set out to be a superhero, but some days superhero status is just thrust upon you, and that's
You're
how it works.
the hero we deserve. Not
You
the
are
one
the
we
hero you all
need.
deserve. If you're listening to me yammer 5 days a week, I believe that's Mr. Allbaugh on the hard line there, using the technology that is more in line with the Luddite that Todd Allbaugh often is for us. Mr. Allbaugh, ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Wow, you're just like laying into Mr. Allbaugh.
I am. I can't.
I
help
would
it.
never speak of the Todd father in such a way ever.
Right.
Well, it's like that Sound of Music song. How do you solve a problem like Todd Allbaugh?
You're really good with the musical, and literal references. Yesterday, I was talking to you about another matter, and you quoted Ebenezer Scrooge at me. He's like, "I don't wish to remain anonymous. I wish to be left alone."
Can I tell you both something? Can I tell you both something?
Yes.
Yesterday, my mother told me about it, and I found it. I found what I believe is the first Christmas Carol movie, which is a 10-minute picture made by the Edison Company.
Really?
It's the entire Christmas Carol made in 1910.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 minutes long, and it tells the entire story. And I think that's how we should always tell the Christmas Carol story, in 10 minutes.
I maybe for most, but you're not going to get me to not watch A Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine every year.
Michael Caine.
He blew the bloody doors off. Yeah, I love that movie. But if anybody else can tell it in 10 minutes, I would appreciate that. Todd, how was your holiday break?
Well, it was fine. I ended up traveling all over the state. I was up in the Chippewa Valley for a few hours. I was over in Shawano, went to see Mino and the mayor in Green Bay, and was at Richland Center celebrating Trivia-thon and a world record holder for longest dance teacher at 77 years. So I was all over the place.
Wow.
See you in Milwaukee or Waukesha, Todd. Thanks.
Sadly, I did not get to the beautiful southeast part of the state.
But still, what a brand ambassador between you and Mathers. I don't know who's logging more miles here as the ambassador for civic media.
Well, it's fun. It's fun. It's one of the great joys and pleasures of having a statewide network where you get to travel all over and see folks. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Not quite as sunny as you down in the beautiful Caribbean, but
I wasn't in the Caribbean. I was in South Texas. Get it right. Come on.
Okay, well, you were sunny, but I spent part of Christmas Day in Eau Claire where it was 54 degrees, having the Chinese takeout in the garage. So, I mean, happy holidays.
Jesus, Todd. Okay.
Which we should explain is because somebody in your family tested for COVID, and so you all were staying separated in the garage very responsibly. And a 54-degree Christmas day made that a little bit easier, didn't it?
Yeah. It did. My brother-in-law, who teaches in Eau Claire, God love him, he's recovering. Best wishes to him. But yeah, just to kind of keep everything kosher, we stayed apart. But the blessing was we still got to see each other across the lawnmower over an oil spill for 50 minutes. That was fine.
Only you could give us keeping it kosher when talking about Christmas dinner. Listen to you.
Which was Chinese food, which is pretty kosher.
Which was Chinese food. I mean, honestly, you're all over the map and you're all over the board today, Allbaugh. You just are. Did you?
Yeah, I know. I'm a little saucy.
Did you get in terms of Christmas presents? Did you get anything that was especially nice and memorable? And remember, your entire family is listening right now.
Well, the nice thing is our family is kind of gone away from the big gifts and everything and the whole. It's too much pressure. You understand? It's like my online life. I can't handle my real life. That's why I'm really bad at social media, because I just can't handle an online life. And so we've gotten rid of the big gifts. And so if we see something, fine. But my mom gave us all these really cool, rechargeable candles, but they're more like a lantern. So it actually looks like a flame, the LED and everything. So that was kind of cool. Enjoy that. Otherwise, it was just, getting together and some good food, and it's a lot less stress. I know it doesn't help the economy, but but really after a gold, myrrh, and silver, I mean, everything else is downhill. So
don't forget that frankincense, baby.
Yep, frankincense.
Yeah, right.
I do always enjoy now. Part of the social media era is that you get these memes at Christmas time about Mary. She's in a manger. And she could really use diapers and, all of this. And instead she's like, what am I going to do with gold, frankincense, and myrrh? And then this kid shows up and says, what this baby needs is a drum solo. It's like, yeah, where did we get these things like little drummer boys and gifts that don't really befit a baby? But we'll save
I'm sure other people have seen it, but there was like a card that said, if there had been 3 wise women, they would have, done a lot better. They would have given practical gifts.
Yes, as well they should have been. But still, it was an enjoyable season. You most certainly made the most out of it. It's great to touch base with you, and we'll be catching you today at noon, I'm quite sure. I mean, you might even have a nice guest off the top.
Pat, quite low off the top, along with Trinity Olson. Lots going on to catch up. Lots of news, so don't miss it today.
All right, there you go. So catch Todd Allbaugh at noon. Thank you, sir. Have a great morning.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Talk to you a little later. Greg, thank you as much. We'll talk to you in the morning. And to all of you listening, thanks so much. Keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network, and we'll catch you here at 6 a.m. tomorrow.